Hello guys, welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we'll be starting with our current affairs roundup series. As most of you would already be knowing, this is an annual series in which we rapidly cover the current affairs of last 2 years in an attempt to maximize our score in prelims. Well, without further ado, let us start with our first subject, economy. Now in prelims, usually there are 15 to 20 questions from economy out of 100, and out of those, around 70% of them are linked with current affairs. So, current affairs is really important for economy. Hence, we will try to finish up this module in 10 to 15 hours in the next 10 to 15 days, which would usually take you guys around 60 hours spread over 30 days. So that is our plan, and now to implement this plan, we will be taking a structural approach, guys. We will talk about current affairs in each subtopic of economy, for example, national income and growth, public finance, money and banking, etc. instead of discussing whatever development has happened in economy in each month. Alright, having said that, let us start with our first topic, national income and growth. Now, in this chapter, there are 7 topics that we will be dealing in the next half an hour to 45 minutes. Now, let us start with our first topic, the definition of national income. So, what is national income? National income is the total value of goods and services produced in an economy in a particular year. Recently, there has been a lot of controversy regarding the GDP figures and the related institutions not being autonomous, etc. Hence, it is important for us to know a few details regarding all these things. Alright. In that context, let us see who releases this GDP data in India. Well, that's Central Statistical Office. Alright. So, who does CSO work under? That would be NSO, National Statistical Office. Central Statistical Office, National Statistical Office. Quick question, guys, is there any other important office under NSO? Yes, NSSO, National Sample Survey Office. Coming back to NSO, when was it set up? It was set up after a 2005 resolution. Guys, please make a note that it was set up after a resolution. Hence, NSO is not a statutory body, it is an executive body. Alright. Now, this 2005 resolution is important for one more reason, because this same resolution set up the National Statistical Commission. Now, one important question that should come to our mind is, what is the difference between NSO and NSC? Guys, to put it simply, NSC is Chacha Chaudhary and NSO is Sabu, which means all the policy making happens at the level of National Statistical Commission, and National Statistical Office takes care of the implementation part. Alright. But why is all this relevant for us in current affairs? It is relevant because Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation has recently released Draft National Statistical Commission Bill. Now see, this draft bill is not important for us, but because of this, we do need to know 2 important details regarding NSC. First is that it was set up after the recommendation of C. Rangarajan Committee in 2005, and the second, well, that it is an executive body and not a statutory body. It is because of this that it is not a statutory body, a bill was being brought out, no? So that NSC would get more autonomy. Alright, please remember these 2 points. Next topic, 7th Economic Census. Now, recently we have started the exercise for 7th Economic Census. Notably, this is different from the Census of India 2021 exercise, which has also begun recently. So, what is the difference between the two? See, economic census, Arthik Janganna, and Census of India, Bharatiya Janganna. Economic census is conducted every 5 years and Census of India is conducted every 10 years. The data collected differs in both the census. Fine? We'll focus ourselves on economic census. Now, it is being carried out by MOSPI in collaboration with Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. This is an important fact, guys. Another important fact that you need to know is that when was it conducted the first time? 1978. Last point regarding this is that it is for the first time we'll be using an IT-based digital platform. Guys, any firsts are important for your exam, alright? Such questions have been asked in the past and they will be asked again in the future. Now, before we move on to the next topic, tell me if this statement is correct or wrong. Economic census is conducted in collaboration with the finance ministry. Is this right or wrong, guys? Guys, it's a wrong statement. Why? Because the answer is mighty. Fine. Next statement. Economic census was conducted under the first 5-year plan for the first time. No, we know that it was conducted in 1978. You can also remember it in a way that it was conducted after emergency. Fine. On a side note, guys, when did we have our first non-Congress Prime Minister at the center? It was again 1978, Morarji Desai. Sometimes they do confuse you with such petty facts. For example, consider this previous year question from 2018. The first democratically elected Communist Party, India's then largest bank, Imperial Bank of India, when was it renamed? Air India was nationalized and it became a national carrier. Goa became a part of independent India. Which of the following is the correct chronological sequence of the above events? Now, these are the respective years in which they happened, and these are the respective chapters in economy that you will find them. The remaining two you will find in post-independence India. But I want to make a larger point from this question, guys. See, you cannot remember all the facts. Just try to remember the story and link the facts to a particular event. Like we linked economic census, the first economic census, to it being conducted after emergency. Alright? Please do not go after munging up such facts. Try to learn it only if something comes up while reading something useful. Alright? Moving on. Next topic, changes in GDP calculation. Guys, these changes were brought in 2015, but we are still discussing it this year because they have been in the news consistently for one or the other controversy. Alright? So we just want you guys to refresh these points. Now, the first change was the change of base year from 2004-5 to 2011 and 12. It's a regular practice and it was also done to capture the unorganized sector data from NSSO's Employment Unemployment Survey. Next, UNSNA recommendations were adopted, and under that we know GDP figures that are now released are GDP at market price and not GDP at factor cost like previously. And to arrive at the GDP at market price, we have a new measure called gross value added at basic prices. I hope you would be knowing these terms. Alright, next is the incorporation of MCA 21 database. Now, this is an e-governance initiative of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, MCA. So, why the number 21? See, just like Aadhaar card is a 12-digit unique number, under this MCA e-governance initiative, the unique number consists of 21 digits. Hence, it is called MCA 21. It was done to ensure comprehensive coverage of corporate sector in mining, manufacturing and services. Next is the adoption of effective input labor method, which basically means that different laborers will have different productivity and hence their contribution should be taken differently. Previously, all were taken same. Fine. Now, the last change is merely a broader coverage of financial sector. Alright. So, these were the 5 changes that were brought. The first 3 you would be knowing, 5th is simple, 4th is the one that you guys usually miss upon. Fine. So, this completes this topic. Moving on to the next topic. Slowdown in the Indian economy. We'll be spending some good 10 to 15 minutes on this particular topic because there are a few concepts that I want to discuss with you guys in a little depth. After the next 10 to 15 minutes, quite a few things will be clear to you which you usually read in the newspaper but might not understand. For example, you will see a guy saying growth will revive. But how? Simple, increase the investment rate. But I think focusing on savings would be a better way. And then you would read that our growth is consumption driven. And one Didi will say, I'm doing my bit to help the economy by doing more shopping. Listening to this, a bhaiya will come. Because you know, हमारे छोरे छोरियों से कम हैं के? This is what was reflected after the first unlock when the liquor shops opened and consumption increased in the malls and other such places. So, to understand what all of these people are saying, let us first try to understand what are the components of growth and what are the important factors of growth. Alright. Now guys, remember there are three ways of calculating the GDP: the income method, the production method and the expenditure method. Among these three, expenditure method is of more concern to us. Alright. So we will focus on that first. Now, in expenditure method, your growth depends on the total expenses incurred in an economy. So the next question that should come to our mind is, who spends in an economy? Well, it's you, your company, your government and foreigners who spend in your economy. Now each of these will incur an expenditure and that will contribute to the growth of our economy. Let us see each of these individually. Now what you spend is called private final consumption expenditure. It comprises of households and whatever expenditure is done by temples, gurudwaras, etc. and we call it non-profit institutions serving households. After this, there is an important term which we call as gross domestic capital formation. It is also called as gross capital formation or gross investment. Alright, what are its components? So the first component of gross capital formation is gross fixed capital formation. Then change in inventory stocks and net acquisition of valuables like gold. Amongst this, gross fixed capital formation is of particular importance for us. Let us see the components of GFCF. It has three components. First, gross business fixed investment, gross residential construction investment and the third is gross public investment. Alright. Let us try to understand this gross domestic capital formation in a little more detail. Now if you will see, this domestic is the same as you would have read about in gross domestic product and gross national product. Alright, as you would already be knowing in GDP and GNP. Now let us see what exactly is this capital and what does capital formation refer to. Alright, now guys, the meaning of capital depends on the context that it is being used for. It can refer to physical goods used to produce other goods, or it can also refer to financial wealth. In context of physical goods, it can either be fixed or it can be movable. When we talk about fixed capital goods, we refer to roads, railways, machineries. Remember gross fixed capital formation? And it is these capital goods which were emphasized under Nehru-Mahalanobis plan from the second 5-year plan onwards. Alright. In context of financial wealth, it refers to gold, stocks and shares. Gold is the net valuable that we talked about in capital formation. Stocks and shares we will study in more detail. So what is capital formation, guys? Forming more capital. Which type of capital? Well, like we said, that depends on the context that it is being used for. So now let us fit all of this in a structure. So these are the components of capital formation. Next, what your government spends is called as government final consumption expenditure. Alright, now just make a note that this government final consumption expenditure and gross public investment are two different things. Gross public investment refers to the government investment in railways, roadways, infrastructure, etc. And gross final consumption expenditure refers to the expenses incurred by the government on salaries, social sector schemes, health sector schemes, education, etc. Fine. So do not get confused between GFCE and gross public investment. Next, foreigners who spend in our economy is called as net exports, because some of our people will also spend in Maldives and other places, right? That will be their exports, but our imports. This is a simple concept, guys, and even a question has already been asked on this. In terms of economy, the visit by foreign nationals to witness the Commonwealth Games in India amounted to exports. Alright? It is because of these type of questions that static part is also very, very important for us to know. Fine? So just to summarize, if growth is a horse cart, these are the 4 horses that will pull the cart, and amongst this, government contributes to 2 horses. Fine? Now, during the pandemic, what had happened? We were all in our homes. So private consumption final expenditure will go down. Businesses were trembling. So gross capital formation by the businesses will also go down. And hence, during the slowdown, what happened was, it was the government final consumption expenditure and net exports which drove our growth forward. Fine? And it is this fact that is reflected in the NSO findings also. If you can see here, net exports and government final consumption expenditure are what have driven the growth in 2020 and 2021. This can be a direct statement in the prelims, guys. That is why I am mentioning this fact. Now let us spend 2 minutes on India's growth pattern in the recent times. As you can see, from 2004 to 2010, we have had an investment-led growth, which means which horse was pulling the growth cart? Gross capital formation. And since 2011, it is the private final consumption expenditure horse that has been pulling the cart. Fine, but which one is better? To answer that, let us try to see another concept. This is you. You have certain income. On that, you will pay certain taxes. And after that, what you are left with is called your personal disposable income. Amongst this, you will save something and you will spend something. Now, if you have to spend more, where will you get that money from? Either your income should increase or you will have to reduce your savings if your income is not increasing. And a growth driven by such consumption will not be sustainable. And that is precisely what has happened in India. Our personal disposable incomes have not increased, but we have had a consumption-led growth, which means households have financed their consumption out of savings rather than higher incomes. And as a result, our savings have also decreased. Now, the next question that should come to our mind is, how will you increase your income? Now, how will you increase your income? Your income will increase when your firm productivity will increase. How will that happen? That will happen when investment in the economy will increase. And how will that happen? Well, it is for that government will have to lead the way, because you should know that government is taking care of two horses. And in gross capital formation, businesses will invest only if they think they will have some profit. And profit can also be reaped by decreasing the costs, which means if the costs of electricity, transportation, taxes, etc. are reduced, businesses would find it profitable to invest more. And that is precisely what government has started doing during and post-pandemic. You will see many incentives for various sectors of the economy trying to reduce their costs, giving them tax benefits, etc. So, I hope that is clear. With this, we finally conclude that investment-led growth will be better than a consumption-driven growth, because only in an investment-driven growth, incomes will rise, and because of that, even consumption can rise. But only if consumption is increasing, that will be a volatile growth. Now, a quick question, guys. India's growth has been consumption driven in the recent past, correct? Even though there is inequitable income distribution, real personal income has been more than ever. Well, that's a wrong statement. Poverty has decreased in the recent decade. Guys, the third statement is a right statement, although the percentage by which it has reduced is debatable, but certainly we have reduced the poverty in India. Fine, so the answer is A, 1 and 3. So now that we know the factors of growth, let us see what does this mean by a cyclical slowdown or a structural slowdown. First, cyclical slowdown. See, cyclical, which means it will happen in a cycle. Business cycle usually happens in 3 stages. There will be a period of boom, which will be followed by a period of slowdown. And if this trend is checked, we will be on our path to recovery. Notably, if this slowdown is not controlled, it will turn into a recession, which will further turn into a depression. Now, during this slowdown, companies' profits will start declining and they will be unable to pay their debts. Such debts will then turn into non-performing assets for the lenders or the banks. And this is what led us to our twin balance sheet problem. What was this twin balance sheet problem? Our infrastructure companies were stressed after 2011 because they were not getting enough revenues, and due to this, the banks who had lent to these infrastructure companies were not getting returns on their assets, which were the loans given to these companies. So the balance sheet of both were having problems. Now, what has happened after 2018 IL&FS crisis? We see a new twin balance sheet problem, in which now the problem is in the balance sheets of non-banking financial companies and the real estate companies. The new two balance sheet problem combined with the previous one is now what is being referred to as 4 balance sheet problem. Now, NPA problem and NBFC crisis we will touch upon in money and banking chapter. So that was cyclical slowdown. Now let us look at the structural slowdown. Guys, structural slowdown is something more deep rooted and which will take more efforts to solve. Now, what are the reasons for the structural slowdown? First is that there has been a savings and investment decline. This has led to a slowdown amongst major industries like the automobiles, diamond, textiles industry. Then there is the agricultural crisis. Guys, this agricultural crisis we will touch upon in our chapter agriculture. Next, there is also income stagnation. If you will see clearly, point 1 and 4th are interconnected, and it has also led us to our 5th point, which is the slowdown in consumption is the major worry for India's economic slump. These points you can also use in your mains. Now that we have understood what are the important factors of growth, what is cyclical slowdown, what is structural slowdown, now let us see how much of this slowdown can we blame on the COVID-19 pandemic. See, our growth was already consumption driven, which slowed down during the pandemic. So, pandemic is not to be blamed completely. We had structural problems already, and structural problem was simultaneously also getting affected by the cyclical problem. So next question that you will ask me, what is the way forward? See, we have just seen that amongst the 4 horses, investment is a major driver. So investment-led growth should be our aim, but it will be subdued due to 4 balance sheet problem. So what will have to happen? We will have to channelize the savings and increase government expenditure, thereby increasing the gross investment or gross capital formation. We will have to make it profitable for the businesses to operate, and that is the way forward. I hope these points are clear. So that completes this topic. Next topic, shape of recovery. Before we understand these graphs, first let us try to understand them with the help of a few examples. Now say, these are you people. Some of you might go to classes, some of you might go to the offices. When you go there, you spend. The more you spend, the more businesses local shops get. Now, let's assume your expenditure was at a certain level. When the lockdown happened, spending decreased. Now let us see what will happen in different scenarios. In one scenario, you don't go for a month and then you start going again. In the other scenario, some of you start going and some take their time, but eventually everybody starts going. Then you start going, but you spend double and then you come back to your normal level. Then 1 month you spend, second month again lockdown, and then again you start spending and then you come back to the normal level. Then it might so happen that you stop going to the classes altogether. So these, when plotted in an economic graph, will look something like this. You can pause the video and read it. These are very common graphs. Now there is something called as K-shaped recovery. Now during the lockdown, almost all of you have been studying at your homes. So your expenditure for books and Xerox has maintained or it has increased. But your expenditure for coffee houses, movie theaters, etc. has decreased. So one sector is recovering well and the other sector is lagging. This is nothing but K-shaped recovery. Now, Economic Survey 2021 has said that India will have a V-shaped recovery supported by vaccine drive. Now, this statement is not important in itself. What is more important, that you know which curve means what. V-shape, U-shape, Z-shape, W-shape, L-shape and K-shape. Fine, let's move on to the next topic. Few trends in Indian economy. Now, next 2 to 3 minutes will be a little factual, guys. Please try to pay a little attention. Trends in GDP growth. Now, you must have heard that last year our GDP contracted. A question can be asked from that. Notably, this was not the first time that we have registered a negative growth. Even previously, we have registered a negative growth rate. Now, tell me if this statement is right or wrong. Though there have been slowdowns in the past, India recently witnessed a negative growth rate for the first time. That's a wrong statement, as we've already seen. Fine? Now, please make a note of this additional information because recently RBI has said that country had entered into a technical recession in the first half of 2021. So, we need to know what is technical recession. A technical recession is a sequential decline in GDP for 2 consecutive quarters. Alright? I hope you would be remembering the business cycle. Boom, slowdown, recovery. And if the slowdown is not checked, it will lead to recession and then to depression. Next, trends in the share of different sectors of economy. Now here, please make a note of 3 points. First, that share of services has consistently remained above 50% in the last decade or so. Next, industry has been contributing around 25% to our growth and agriculture has been contributing around 18 to 20%. Alright, the statement in the exam can be twisted and it can be asked that manufacturing contributes to 25% to the Indian economy. This is an important figure because under Make in India program, we are trying to make the contribution of manufacturing sector to 25% in the economy. But you need to know that still the contribution is around 18 to 19%. Next, trends in gross savings. Now, remember when we talked about the expenditure method, who will spend in your economy? You, your company and your government. Now, who will save in your economy? You, your company and your government. And this is why the components of gross savings will be household sector, private corporates and public savings. Fine. Now here you need to note down certain trends. So for example, first is that there has been a decline in gross savings on account of decline in gross savings of household sector. Fine. Next, household sectors still prefer physical savings over financial savings. Now tell me if this statement is right or wrong, guys. Private corporate savings have decreased in the last decade. Make a note that they have increased in the last decade. Now this is a counterintuitive statement, guys. A question can come from this point. So that completes this topic. Let us start with the last topic, gross domestic knowledge product. Recently, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation in collaboration with the Indian Statistical Institute held a one-day workshop on the emerging area of GDKP. And hence, it is important for us to know few factors, what all is included in it and what will we gain if we start publishing this data. So, its components are knowledge items, cost of individual learning, a country's knowledge producing matrix and a country's knowledge user matrix. And this is what is included in this. You can pause the video and read it. There are just two important points that I want you guys to remember. First is whether it will enhance GDP and proper role of private investment with direct benefits to the Indian economy and whether Yog, Ved, etc. are included in GDKP. The answers to both the questions are yes. Fine. So that completes our last topic. I hope you would have gotten many things to learn. I will try to revisit these important points through questions 1 month before your examination, and in that we will also cover more concepts which would have happened in the concerned time frame. Alright. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day.